Afternoon, modern eaters. Here it is. Where are the eggs? What the cluck? You go to the grocery store and they're nowhere to be found. There's a lot going on with egg production right now and the cage free requirements. Rachel Gabel is going to be joining us. I'll introduce her to us now. Assistant editor of the Fence Post magazine and also ag columnist for Colorado Politics. Let's introduce her now. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. This is a conversation I've been meaning to have for quite some time, but now that we've got you on the horn, here we go. Let's dig into this. Eggs, they're scarce. Is it all avian flu, first of all?
Well, there's been a tremendous number of avian flu cases here in Colorado. We have about 6 million laying hens and commercial flocks in the state, and over 4.5 million of those have been affected by high path avian influenza. So that's like 85% of the laying flock here in Colorado. So that's significant. And the eggs in the stores, there's a little bit of lag time from the time that they leave the egg facility to the time that they hit your store at Safeway or Walmart. But I think that will eventually even out. One of the things that we're really seeing here in Colorado is some instability and just some unknowns about the bill that came into play beginning on January 1st that requires all of the egg producers in the state, all of the eggs basically to come from a cage free environment, as well as any eggs that are sold into the state by producers in other states also have to meet those cage free system requirements. So I think that is also causing some unknowns and some concern in the marketplace.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like the perfect storm to me now. The prices of eggs have really gone up. I don't know, at top end, what, $7.50 a dozen, something like that, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, the most
Prices,
I think I've heard is 16 for an 18 pack,
whew,
which seems a little crazy. But then if you think, well, that's, $8, $9, $10 for a dozen. Yeah, that's pretty well in line of what we've been hearing.
yeah, prices have skyrocketed, but people are still buying them, which is very interesting. So there's some questions as people tune into the modern eater. They kind of like to get that information and just kind of cut to the quick. So with this perfect storm that's going on right now, I want to talk about HB 201343, which is the legislation here in Colorado. What is that? When people say cage free, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, not in a cage. But what are the environments right now that chickens are in to where they want to move to a cage free environment?
Well, I can't speak for what all of the conditions are in all of the egg production facilities here in Colorado, but what this requires is that they have 1.5 feet of floor space per hen, and then they have an area that's designated where they can have a dust bath or can scratch around and do chicken things. So they're not just in a cage all of the time. And I can't speak to what all of those look like, but I can tell you that the 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 egg growers here, the egg producers kind of said, well, the markets were moving that way anyway, which which is fine. If they do, people can vote with their dollar, but I certainly remember during the COVID era that you would go to get eggs and the only ones that would be there on the shelf would be the more expensive cage free. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see. There's a handful of states that have these cage-free requirements. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out once high path, once that dust kind of clears.
Yeah, it's interesting in agriculture. I always wonder a lot of times. Let me give you for example. As the modern eater, we travel twice a year for our road trips to connect with agriculture throughout the state. And one of the stops was Sunnyside Processing Facility in Durango, Colorado. And as Holly gave us this tour of the facility, there were a lot of things that struck me as, is this actually for the animal or is this for the consumer to feel better? When the animal comes in, they have tall fences so that they don't see any human beings. They have a last meal. Do you think that the hen actually cares if they have a little bit better of an environment? I mean, what's the difference here? And do you think that the animal actually understands or cares about that? Is this for the human being?
Well, if the hens are very concerned about that, they've certainly not reached out to me and communicated that. either via text or call or email. I've not heard from them, but I think a lot of it is just feel good legislation, and which is fine. I I think that there's that disconnect between agriculture and consumers where they perhaps don't know what's being done for the good of the animal or the good of the livestock all the time. But I, the feel good legislation is here or there. But I think the more that we have on the books, the more emboldened the extremists feel. And
Hmm.
certainly here, where we have a ballot proposal process in Colorado, I don't have anything good to say about that process, and it leaves us sitting ducks, if you will, in
Hmm.
agriculture. And feel good legislation just kind of opens the door to other ridiculous things, especially when there's such a divide between consumers and producers, which we certainly see here in Colorado.
Yeah, producing food, especially when it comes to animals, I mean, it's not glamorous at all. I mean, and it's just the way that it is. I do like small production facilities, small production farms. I enjoy that, but that's not going to feed the world and the masses. But as we get back to the eggs, so we have this legislation. It's in place. It's a requirement. Cage free. When does that? When is that? 2024. When does that have to take place to where that mandate is? That's it
Fully cage free by 2025.
by 2025. Now,
Yep.
how do we source our eggs from other suppliers? Do they have to meet those same requirements in order for an egg to don the doorstep of a Colorado family?
Yep. They sure do. Unless they're buying from a very small farm that's exempted from this. It's like if you sell fewer than 100 cases of shell eggs per week or something along those lines. But yeah, if even if you're right across the line, I it's no longer why did the chicken cross the road? It's the egg's not crossing the line if it's not cage free right
Mm,
now into Colorado,
which is
which is
interesting.
added expense.
And you would have thought there would have been kind of a slight transition, and maybe you wouldn't even notice it at all, or that type. Are there other instances of pulling the band-aid off of legislation like this to where the market skyrockets in the cost of buying the food? And it just seems to me like such a sudden and abrupt beginning to a new era of what's happening here. And I think a lot of it has to do with the bird flu, but is it? Was this inevitable to happen at some point?
Well, I think higher prices were certainly inevitable, but maybe not 750 a dozen, which
Mm,
is seems to be kind of the average of what we're seeing. I think kind of the case study that's a little bit ahead of us is the um, hog law that's Prop 12 in California, which requires that hogs have a certain amount of space, which isn't like an industry standard. It's just a number that's pulled out of wherever that that now California, if you're going to sell pork into California, you have to abide by these, which would cost millions and billions of dollars for all of these hog producers to switch because for the most part, once the hogs enter the supply chain, the processor processes them and then they are shipped to their destination. So the hog farmer doesn't know if they're, for the most part, if they're going to be shipping into California or not. They know
mm,
that they're selling to a certain company. So it's not even like, okay, well, these four pork producers are going to abide by the California laws and their pork will go straight to California. Now it's like every pork producer in the US has to abide by these or they can't sell pork into California. And California is a pretty major import market for US pork.
yeah, I mean, you'd have to imagine, do the math, how many people there are. Um, this issue, I'd love for you to look into your crystal ball. Rachel Gabel here with us, the Fence Post magazine, and also an ag columnist for Colorado Politics. Look into your crystal ball here, Rachel, and what's going to happen in the next, I don't know, 6 months as far as egg production goes and coming to market? Are the shelves still going to be barren? Is this going to even out? Are the prices going to go back to normal? What are we going to see here within the next couple months?
Well, just realize that my crystal ball is a little bit chipped and it has some frost on it because it's
It's
been pretty
okay.
cold for a while. But I anticipate that the supply chain and the egg supply will even back out, but I don't think we'll ever see a return to the cheap protein the egg was for so many families here in Colorado. I think they've legislated that affordable protein right off the plate.
Hmm. Well, I
And
think
the reason that they legislated it was to avoid an initiative. It was Initiative 314, I believe, and it would have changed the confinement standards for hogs, poultry, and breeding pigs. So, uh,
Rachel, I think the only fix to this whole thing is everybody should go out and get a couple layers and put them in their backyard for their neighbors to listen to.
well, that'll be more interesting if you live on the West Slope in Wolf Country, isn't it?
Yes, it would be. I really enjoyed talking to you. Tell people more about what you do. I mean, you're not just an author and a columnist, you also are in ag. What else do you do, Rachel?
Sure, we run a cow-calf operation up here in northeastern Colorado, not too far from Fort Morgan off of 76. You've probably driven by my hometown and considered stopping for a Dr. Pepper. But we run a commercial herd of cows here, and we have also a purebred herd of Hereford cows, and we have a handful of show goats, and so that's the other job that I do when I'm not writing about it. And I think that when folks see me at the gas station in town and I'm covered in smelling like money, I think that translates to credibility. That's what I think anyway. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
I also believe that as well. One of the neat things, and I want to interview you at a separate time for this, but I think it's worth mentioning, you are a children's book author as well.
Yes, yes. And I would be happy to get you a copy of each of those to give away to your listeners if you would like. But I have a
Do you
book
have a
about
copy
each.
right in front of you that you can hold up?
No,
I
can grab
didn't.
one off the shelf.
Right.
Sorry, it's on the other side of my desk.
No problem.
I've got a book called Still Good, which kind of covers the diversity of agriculture here in Colorado and hits on lots of different portions of it. The Sweetest Treat, which talks about the peach industry in Colorado, which is, of course, one of our sweetest ag commodities. And then the most recent is called The Woolly Way, and that's kind of the story of the Theos family in Meeker and how they graze sheep and how their trip from the mountains to the desert every year works.
That's fantastic. I appreciate all that you do for us, keeping us informed and Colorado. I thank you for your time. And lastly, how can people get a hold of you? I signed up for your newsletter last night. I think other people should follow that lead. But how can people get a hold of you if they have questions or concerns?
Sure, that would be great if you signed up for my newsletter. It's at rachelgabel.com, and my books are on there too. But you can, I try to put articles on there as well and in the newsletter, but you can find me at the Fence Post magazine, so thefencepost.com, and then also every Monday on Colorado Politics, the Denver Gazette, and the Colorado Springs Gazette.
Yeah, Rachel also has an Instagram too, if you want to check that out. Stay right there, Rachel. I'm going to put a little ribbon around this right now. And you guys, I mean, here it is. We're heading into 2023. The Modern Eater, we're all about community, local, talking about your food, where it comes from, the food supplies. There's a division right now. There is a huge dichotomy when it comes to mass-produced food that takes a long time to get here and isn't as delicious and nutritious for you, or your local producers and purveyors, which I would hope that you'd take a look at. Let's jump into 2023. We got this together. I really appreciate your time today, and hopefully you learned a little something about eggs, where they come from and why they're not on your table right now, or if they are on your table, why they're so expensive. Stick around. We've got more